All right, well, as you guys know, I'm Mike Ross with Viega. I'm the district manager locally. This is Jim McCreary. You're familiar with him. He's the IM, or the industrial manager. So we're here today to kind of talk about ProPress. Last month we talked about MegaPress, and before we begin ProPress, is there any questions again that came up since our presentation? You're all good? Okay, let's move into ProPress. So you see there's ProPress and there's ProPress G. All right. So, there we go. This is obviously going to be a review for many of you, but if there's something that comes up, ask a question. But essentially there's some components to the fitting that set us aside of the other competition out there. And this is really the true feature that makes us different from the guys who are wannabes or copycats, because a lot of people realize that press is the way to go, and in order to get involved in that ball game, they tried to get as close to our design as they could, and then they try to get some business, so they're hopping on the bandwagon. But essentially, we'll go into subsequent slides of what makes the Smart Connect feature significantly different, and they can't copy it right now. And some of the features like the cylindrical pipe guide that helps you when you're inserting the pipe into the fitting, that you get a good insertion, okay, and it goes in there nice and straight, and then you're fully inserted, you can press it, all right? So we'll pass that around right now so you have that to kind of play around with. This is a high quality fitting. The body material is heavier than K copper, and then the sealing element is an EPDM or an HMDR, okay, for specific applications, so we'll go into that. Now, Viega copper and bronze fittings. Now, this is an older slideshow too, well, so some things may have to be talked about in greater detail. But again, as I said, it's heavier than K copper. Many of the fittings are hydroformed copper fittings. There's the sealing elements again, the different choices you have, which sets us apart from the competition. So when you're talking about the other companies, they don't offer you more than one sealing element, so that limits their applications. And that's one of the downsides to them, as opposed to using the leader in the industry. European applications, pioneered in 1989, okay, came to this country in 1999, so it was well proven in Europe, and now it's been 20 years in this country, so it's very well proven design. It still continues to grow, and we still grew our market in ProPress last year by double digits, so that's something to be really proud of, simply because you're a 20-year-old product, you're very mature, okay? You have multiple competitors there trying to erode the business, but they still don't have the amount of configurations that Viega makes, so that you'll have to kind of do your own, what Jim would say, mixing and matching to get things like tees and reducers and stuff like that. So that's the advantage we have. And the rigid tool partnership isn't really there now, but it's how it began back in '99 when they came over. And it's copper tube size and fittings, and it conforms to the ASTM 88 B88 specifications. And then, like that guy's doing, he's driving so fast that the air is blowing his cheeks apart. Typically, when you're looking at a 1/2 inch through 4-inch connection, it takes between 4 and 7 seconds, okay? And that's giving it a little bit of, gradual difference there, because most people can do it real quick because they've been doing it so long. But you can train somebody up right away with using this product, and that's how fast they can reduce their labor time. So there's really not a lot of prep to it, okay? Compared to cleaning, fluxing, and soldering, obviously when you're talking about when you're prepping this product, you take a look at this and we insert it in, okay, we fully insert it, and we take a black magic marker, because that's what's easier to see on copper. You mark the insertion depth on your fitting, and then you see where it's inserted, so that if you are going to press it right now, you know it's fully inserted. But if you did walk away and came back to it later and you saw that line, are you likely to press it? No way. So that's good business practice, good engineering practice to fully insert it, mark it, and then move along. More jobs can be done at the same amount of time. That's the takeaway point. Whether you're a purchasing agent or whether you're project manager, whatever, obviously that's the difference between using traditional methods and using ProPress. And minimal training is required. We just got done saying, everybody in here, we can train you today, and you'll be ready to go out in the field and press fittings, as long as you know what you're doing on the other side of the whole thing. Quick and easy repairs, essentially when you're talking about, let's say a repair, you've got a coupling like this, You're going to cut that pipe out, and then you're going to put this slip coupling on, and then you're going to press, you're done. You can do it while it's flowing, so you don't have to shut down the whole building, drain the pipe, make sure it's completely dry before you start soldering or whatever joining method you have. Versatility, we have 660 plus fittings, ranging from 1/2 inch all the way up to 4, and then your world's largest selection of press fittings, and that is true to this day still. No flame needed. That's big because more companies have come over. We had, most recently, I had a guy down in Shrewsbury who did never use press at all. He was threading and soldering, and he basically bought our system in one fell swoop. He's like, okay, I can see the benefits. So he had a job where he's going to be doing copper and black iron, and he went from not using it to using both right away. Sometimes people start out using ProPress, they like it, then they get addicted to it, boom, and they see the savings they get. But no flame needed, so your insurance companies don't have to raise your liability costs. Consistent press every time. That's one of the engineering things that's good about these fittings. No matter who in this room is going to fit these fittings to the pipe, it's designed to be done right the first time, no matter who does it. Okay, so that's good because you can have different levels, just like a good football team. You have the starting quarterback, and then you have the backup. Well, usually there's a significant drop-off between the guy who starts and the guy who finishes, or second. And then it's environmentally friendly. There's no chemicals. You're not using flux or solder or flame. So that's the safety aspect. So your safety managers love that whenever you're talking to them about those kind of things. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't turn it off. There we go. It's off. So double press ensures permanent seal. So when you're talking about a press, you note that the jaws, okay, go down on each side of the fitting, okay? So you can see where this fits into the fitting. When you're pressing around that seal and on the pipe. So that's what we're doing, complete seal. And now we're going to, next slide we'll go into the patented Smart Connect feature. And that's like I said, that's the one thing there that they haven't copied. And we can definitely set ourselves apart from that. And it's professional, clean appearance. Again, it's because of that you have a real good looking job. Okay, so ProPress, anatomy of a ProPress fitting. Now let's go into the Smart Connect feature. And the third party proven test is QAI Laboratories. And what they did is they took 1/2 inch up to 2 inch sizes, or no, 1/2 inch to 4 inch, what am I saying? And then they compared 2 of the other market leaders, not leaders, but let's say 2 of the copycats. And they basically air pressure tested and water pressure tested. So at each different size, 1/2 inch, then 3/4, then 1 inch, you know, each size they checked for pressure testing under water or air. And obviously what you want is it to tell you that if you forgot to press, that's a good thing, because then you know enough before you leave the job site so you don't cause damage down the road. But the competition, the 2 competitors they rated in there, that would be Nipco and Apollo, they both failed, and significantly more than the others at the higher sizes. So if you had a 1/2 inch, they did pretty good air pressure testing, not bad. But as you got higher, then they failed really significantly. And you'll see the difference in here. But any questions about that? All right, so there you go. When you see a dot, that on the other side, which I'll pass around this fitting, I put an arrow on it because it shows you where the little, you could call it a notch or little, what would you call it, Jim? Notch?
Well, indentation.
Indentation. If you put your finger behind here like I'm doing, and you'll feel that, that's just a small, just like somebody took a punch and just kind of made a small indentation there, okay? That is part of the Smart Connect technology, and that's a guarantee that it will definitely show you your unpressed fitting every single time, all the time. And that's what set us apart from the other guys. They fail up to 50% of the time. That's bad. Because I know I've heard of a specific case in Penn State that they were using a competitive product, and 2 years after installation, it started leaking one Monday morning, and it was a mess. And that was definitely not a good thing. So 2 years after, just goes to show you that you really want that thing to tell you if you forgot to press. Okay? So essentially the green dot's the EPDM, and that's gonna be your water, hydronics and stuff like that, low pressure steam up to 15 PSI. And if you had a yellow dot on there, that would be for something of air or gases, okay? And that's an HNBR sealing element. Has everybody gotten a chance to try the thing yet? It's working this way, okay. Everybody feel that little indentation in there? So when you press, that flattens out, and it won't leak now, but it's designed obviously to go and drip or whistle, have air leaking. Okay, so you see in this picture here, again, it's easily recognized by the dots because the other guys don't have dots on theirs, and it quickly identifies, obviously I'm pressed when pressure tested, and I know some guys don't pressure test, they should, right? Supposed to. There's the 1/2 inch to 2 inch configuration, so you're looking at, this is the kind of configuration of the body from 2 inch on down, okay? You got this little hoop here where the sealing element sits in, okay? And then you've got, for the 2.5, 3, and 4, you've got this kind of body, which resembles the Mega Press. I'll do this small and pass around. But you see there's different components. Why? I'm turning it to airplane mode. There we go. I usually don't do that. I don't forget that. Okay, so obviously with the copper it meets the NSF 61 zero lead qualifications. Your Smart Connect feature has the NFPA 13, 13R, and 13D for fire sprinkler systems, and then UL and FM requirements. Okay. Now here's your larger size we just got done talking about, and here's the different components you see. It's listed. There's a separator ring, and that basically keeps it separate, the EPDM seal separate from the bite ring, because that bite ring is obviously very aggressive. It's designed to bite into the soft copper and hold that press, okay? So be careful when you're handling it. Those teeth are sharp and you can cut yourself on them, but they're designed to be that way. But that's why that separator ring's there, so that the bite ring does not in any way, shape, or form cut the sealing element, creating a leak path. And there you go, you see the green dot again, okay? And then for 1/2 inch to 4 inch, hard drawn copper type KL&M, and I get this, I think somebody from your asked last week, and I answered for Bob. Yeah, Bob called me and I said, yeah, you can use it on soft drawn copper, 1/2 inch to 1.25 inches only.
He wanted 2 inch, to go up to 2 inch, yeah.
Okay. So that, and I sent a copy of the, you know, the
Is there somewhere online that we can get those?
Well, I have the little installation manual. I can just send that, and you have a PDF. Then that way you can send it out to customers, or we can give you the hard copy. But essentially, that's where I pulled it out of for him to be able to give the customer.
Because like I was looking in the book and I couldn't find it.
Yep, I'll get that. I'll get that sent to you. Make sure you get me your email address before I leave, and anybody else who might need that. Okay. And there's your ProPress fittings. See the different colors? They're meaningful because the green is always going to be your EPDM, and the yellow is always going to be your HNBR. And with the G, whenever you see a G at the end of the product, it's for gas. Okay, so it's a no-brainer. And there's 3 different sealing elements. And the FKM in this circumstance would be a field installed, meaning they would send you the sealing element FKM for the technician's installation. And the typical difference between EPDM, which is black, and the FKM is black. The FKM is a dull black, okay? The EPDM is shiny, but the FKM has higher temperature capabilities. It can handle spikes up to 356 degrees, and that's for 24 hours, okay?
You said how many degrees?
356 degrees.
Continuous. And what color? White, right?
The white dot. Yeah, the white dot is for the FKM. Anytime you see a white dot, whether it's stainless steel, copper, or whatever, it's always going to be a white dot for FKM. It's funny because they have the, you know, the whole information there on that, but that's. Any questions on the sealing elements?
So what are some of the applications that you'd use FKM on that you wouldn't use EPDM on?
Fire sprinkler would be one.
That's good, yeah.
Applications where there would be more heat in the water or something like that. You know, definitely hold that. And there's your maximum pressures for, that would be 200 PSI, and of course we test all of our fittings for 600 PSI and they hold, but typically they're rated to be right at the standards. Temperature range is 0 to 250. Remember, we talked about FKM. That one goes up to 356 degrees for 24 hours. But here's typical. That's what's going to be in your little manual I'll send you. It has this same page in it. It basically reviews the applications that the person can use. And there we go. There's the XLC, which refers to the extra large copper, 2.5 through 4. Green dot. There it is again. Meets 0 lead requirements. Again, same thing, fire sprinkler, FM approved. The grip ring is 420 stainless steel, okay, and that gives it its mechanical strength, and then the separator ring that it calls out here, we already went through that, why that's there. There's the yellow. So what's the yellow mean?
Yes.
Got it. And essentially, propane mixed manufactured gases in the vapor state, not liquid state. Okay, and it's commonly used for fuel oil heating systems as well. HNBR stands for hydrogenated nitrobutadiene rubber, yellow in color. There's your difference in the gas applications where your maximum pressure is at 120 psi, 125 psi, and in some applications, if you give me a compatibility form, I have a compatibility form where engineers require that we fill out, and it would ask a typical situation where the safety data sheet, you know, what's on it, what's going through the pipe, and you know, how much continual pressure you're operating on. So there's going to be some questions asked, we answer them, and then our engineers will sign off on the use of that in that specific application. So it may require to have 200 psi constantly or something like that. And the temperature range for the HNBR is -40 up to 180. So those guys can work in pretty darn cold weather, pressing that and getting it done. And there's the FKM sealing element, and you know, this is what's kind of, it's not white dot on there, it's kind of a back slide, but there it is, it's talking about 1/2 inch to 2 inches for ProPress, okay, maximum pressure. Now you have spikes up to 356, so it does, you know, what the EPDM per se, but it has the advantage of handling higher applications. And there's what it would look like if you've got field installed.
So there's no way they don't install that at
Not in
all
the copper.
in the factory?
Not in the copper. And in your MegaPress XL, it's standard in there. That's what's already in there because it's a
Right.
white dot. And all sealing elements are installed using H1 food grade lubricant, so you don't have to worry about poisoning somebody. And they're a static seal, so they are not in direct flow path of the medium flowing through the pipe. That question comes up from time to time. People think, oh, they look at that sealing element in there, like, oh, that's a rubber band or something, you know, I don't trust that 50 years or what do you say? Because that's the warranty of the fitting, but that kind of explains it there. They're not in the direct flow, but in the event that there would be some thermal expansion, you know, that would prevent it from leaking. That's what the sealing element's doing there. There's our valves. And with that, I always turn it over to Jim with the valves because that's his area of expertise, in addition to being in the industry for a real, really long time.
The things that are specifiable, obviously, is the type of bronze that we use. When we all went to 0 lead, the biggest struggle was to pull the lead out and to replace the lead with something that was going to be useful. And so what a lot of people did is they went with a silicone injection, and some of the lesser grade manufacturers 7, 8 years ago, when you pressed on the tailpiece would collapse. So it was soft enough to allow you to press, but they haven't figured it out yet. So the manufacturers that have figured it out are Viega and Apollo and FNW. Those are the common ones that you see. Watts actually buys their tailpieces from Viega. NIPCO, if you noticed, whenever you compete with them, they use no adapters. So this is a big thing with the desinkification of the bronze and the tailpieces. Those are probably the most important things so that your phone doesn't ring when when a guy goes to install. And then I'll just say one thing for me personally is, I think the NIPCO way of doing things is okay. Male adapters versus having the industry get too fancy for itself, especially when you start to get into the higher alloys. The cost difference between a traditional valve with tail pieces, male adapters, and a valve that's designed complete for press, it's like 50%. So I think we're pushing our installers beyond the brink point where I think that using the use of male adapters and threaded valves in the case of bronze is more than acceptable. But we're working on getting our prices more in line, so that we can compete in that area that we just mentioned. The stainless steel ball and stem is big. It's not a hollow chromed brass ball, And then this is our potable water valve. If you look at our heating valve, which is leaded, it's very price competitive. So I had a phone conference today with Paige Riddle. If ever you needed access directly to, our tier 1 wholesalers have a direct conduit right back to our product management team, and her name is Paige, Paige, Paige Riddle, Riddle. For instance, as you know, we're size limited at 2-inch right now, and she's working on getting us a comprehensive offering half through 4.
ProPress G. There's your approved applications. Again, we went through that earlier in each of the slides, but you can see when you're looking at your operating pressure, your temperature, and then it tells you which one you're going to have and which one's going to be there for that specific. So you can see there's a variety. You've got ethanol here, you've got hot and cold potable water there.
They don't get into cleaned and bagged at all or anything like that, do they?
Well, that's something we have a third party that does that right now up in New York, but I think that we're getting into med gas sometime next year. That's been said. So if you're
HPT up in New York State, and the way we handle that is you get a requirement, you place the order, you ship it to them. So rather than you have to handle it twice, and they have multiple grades that they can conform to.
Okay.
So if you have a spec, that helps them out immeasurably. Otherwise, you'll leave it up to them to decide on which level of detail they have to go to. And then they typically ship it back to you in 2 to 3 days.
Okay. And as far as the valves, the only thing you have is the balls, right? No checks or...
Right on.
I had somebody the other day wanting to press check, and I'm almost positive there's none.
But again, if you...
I just used the fittings, to make it, but...
Apollo does make a press check valve, but it's light duty, and it's a lot more costly than your traditional, and your traditional is going to outperform it like crazy. So here again, as a press manufacturer, sometimes we get a little too fancy for ourselves. I would not use, in fact I don't use, our own inline check valve. It's not reliable.
Remember what I was saying earlier, that if you had a contractor who called you up and said, hey, I want to use ProPress, and here's what I'm going to use it on, you look in the little application guide that's in that book, and you say, I don't see it on there. Oh no, what do I do? Well, that's called a Viega rep. So either Jim or myself, you can give us the contact person, or you can just say, I took a list of all the things that this is going to need, and we can fill out that form. So there's typical stuff, obviously, the emails and phone numbers and addresses, but then the real pertinent questions are, okay, temperatures and pressures and things, and what's the operating conditions? Is it going to be outside, inside? Is it going to be in a real damp area, whatever? So we fill that out, and then it is reviewed by the engineers, and then within a week, I'd say, you have your word back. That's not a good application. We don't want to be warranting that product with that type of thing. Or they say, yeah, we'll sign off, and you now are a specific customer to this application. So it's a case-by-case basis, essentially. And this is just termed zero lead, refers to materials containing not more than 0.2% lead, okay? So wetted surface refers to any and all parts of the valve or fitting that is directly in contact with potable water. And then you have your other stuff, NSF 61F. And next one is what to look for. Labeling installation instructions of compliant product will contain notice stating this product contains zero lead. ProPress zero lead bronze products will be marked with NSF 61. You know, they always have the stamping on them. And then there's your references if you want to do some online studying or something on the NSF website. And this is ProPress applications. You can see that with the components they're showing here, I had that one in my hand, but you can see that this is showing you that most buildings, you can do pretty much the whole building with our product line, okay? Same thing with the heating applications. Again, you're looking at a copper to PEX transition piece. Here's a larger one. This is a 2-inch, okay? So you can actually go from copper right into commercial PEX right away, and then do the rest of the building like that. And again, stub outs, all the good stuff. And there is solar thermal. That's a big thing nowadays. If you look at our catalog, we have a lot of products related to that. And then there's the rigid press tools. This one is a 210. This is a smaller. I don't have my 340 with me today, which is usually on my side like a cowboy. It's out being used right now, but typically there is a difference of, you know, the two. This one's a little bit lighter, and it has smaller jaws, which I brought in my 340 jaw, and it doesn't fit the 210, so shame on me. But essentially they use the same batteries, 18 volt. Batteries charge in about 15 minutes. And some guys use this only because they don't go to the larger sizes, because the 340 will take you up to 4 inches. Any questions about the 210?
How about tooling in general? Someone says, hey, do I have to use a rigid tool on a Viega press fitting to hold warranty? The answer is no. So then if you go to the new tool manufacturers, Milwaukee included, you just ask them, are you approved for Mega Press? And if the tool manufacturer says yes, then now you're covered. And I can tell you that Milwaukee's M18 is Mega Press approved, and their compact version is an M12. And then there's a new tool coming out by Milwaukee called a long throw. If you grab the barrel and you hold the barrel like that, barrel rotates in probably 45-degree increments. This would represent the press position for 2.5 inch. This would represent a press position for 3 inch. And if you bring it all the way around, you press on a 4 inch. So where that comes to play is on Sked 10, Sked 40 piping systems. So when you see the long throw, it's to replace the need for a booster. I know we talked about the booster last time we were here, but that's the latest in tooling.
Yeah, and it supposedly came out this month. They introduced that long throw tool this month. So we just hit May, and so did Milwaukee. And there's the Graceful 340, the one that we're also used to, and that has the highest output. That'll do 42,000 cycles, so before you rebuild it. And that's the one that really is, you know, widely used for the bigger companies. And there's your jaw sets. So you have standard size jaws. Again, that's 340, and then your compact series jaws, 1/2 inch to 1.25 inch. That's your limitations typically in your smaller tool. You can't do a 4 inch or 2.5 or 3 or anything like that. And then down there, of course, is our pure flow PEX.
How many cycles typically can you get out of a scissor jaw like that?
I think you said 10,000, is it?
It's about 20,000.
20,000.
It's designed so that the plate that you see that connects the one half of the jaw to the other will actually shear. So it's good right up until the time that there's so much movement between the jaws that the plate will shear. So if a contractor says, hey, you know, how do I know that the jaw is good? Well, as long as the plate is intact, the jaw is good.
And this picture is really good because I love this picture because it tells a good story. You see these littler clamshell style jaws, they're 1/2 inch up to 2 inch. Now typically here's a 3/4 inch jaw for the 340 tool, but when you're coming into press, you have to hit it from the front in no other way, okay? So you're always going to be coming at it the length of the tool and the jaw. You may not have that much space, because I say, oh, I could never get in there with that big tool. Well, you probably could, but guess what? If you have these little clamshells, now you can put the clamshell around the fitting, okay, like that, and then you can approach it from the side so you're perpendicular to the piping, okay? That's what these offer. And that's what's nice about that, because, you know, that guy used to complain, I can't get a tool in there, and I don't have the space you ask. You can really, when you think about it, your tool will go right beside it, because you come in and press from here, or you can press from here because of these jaws. This actuator pinches here and here, and then it closes, so you're getting it pressed that way, as opposed to the regular jaw that you, scissors jaw that you used to see
Is that
here.
something fairly new?
No, believe it or not, it's been out there a while, and I was doing a counter display earlier last year, and the rep was right next to me, and it was a perfect setup, and it's like, wait a minute, I didn't know they had that. You know, I've never seen it physically. He had it with him. I'm thinking, geez, of all the people I've talked to that used to say, I love the press, but I can't get in some places. Well, now, with that setup, you can, and it's a darn good toolkit.
And that's just after 2.
Yep. And it brings you these jaws, but that's what this is showing you here. You have a 180-degree swivel to go and press that then. And
You
this
wouldn't
is what
happen
it
to know
looks
the
like.
part number for that off the top of your head, do you?
I'll get it for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I have a catalog in the car, a rigid catalog, but boy, that's a grace saver, because some of these guys, again, they like getting in those small spaces with a 3/4 inch, but then, you know, you always have to hit it front on or, you know, underneath or something. Now, it saves you a lot of space. Any other
I've had
questions?
guys use that excuse as to why not to buy the,
Oh, yeah.
not to buy the rigid, because they couldn't get
Yeah.
in there.
Yep. I wish somebody would have told me about this, because I've shown this slide before and it never clicked to me, because I kept thinking, oh, that's the bigger, and I was like, wait a minute, no, it's that. So shame on me, but again, when I saw that kit sitting in front of me, I thought it was like a bar of gold. Thing was beautiful. I asked him if I could borrow it for a couple of weeks, he wouldn't let me. Rigid guys are nice, but they're real tight to the skin with the lending and stuff. But here's you know, again, this is a good example of see how that tool can just 180 degrees. You can pinch it from here, here, or here. So that is a good little kit. Now this is for the 2.5, 3, and 4 though. This is showing you again, that's the bigger stuff, the XLC.
Part number is 27428.
Thank you.
Here's your rings and fittings.
You need to write that number down. We need to look at
The
that.
bronze ones are discontinued, so disregard it.
I thought you were gonna look at it and talk to me about it.
Installations, minimum distance between 2 ProPresses, so you can see if somebody asks you, hey, I'm doing 3/4 inch pipe. How far away do I have to have those 2 fittings, you know, between presses? Well, you can see up to 1 inch. You don't have to have a minimum distance, so you can almost press directly to the tubing. And then when you get up to the 1.25 to 2 inch, then you see you have to use at least that as a minimum. And minimum distance for the 2 ProPress connections for the larger size down here, at least 5/8 of an inch. And that's in that manual, you know, a little guide I was telling you about. A lot of this stuff is in that same book, so if you email it to a customer, it's there, it's all that. They won't call you back asking another question. It's really helpful. And then same thing with existing soldering fitting. Obviously, you want to solder first and then press later, not press first and then solder right after that. But if you're already working near a fitting, you know, and you're soldering 1/2 inch, you have to have the minimum distance between that. And then soldering brazing near, that also gives you the example how far away you want to make sure. And if you're obviously doing that, you want to maintain some sort of a cooling path that you don't have to make that fitting get hot and ruin the rubber sealing element. And that's just the ProPress G stuff where its logos are. And there's National Fuel Gas Code 2015, you know that. Has that been updated, Jim? The fuel gas
It's
code?
updated on a yearly basis.
Is it? Okay. So you know that's an old slide.
So that's for fire protection, NFPA 54, exposed sprinkler work. So we do that in copper, we do that in stainless. So if that head was exposed, you couldn't use the Blaze Master plastic because of the ultraviolet rays present. So if it's exposed, you got to go metallic. And we have I think it's a Reliant head that we use. So for sprinkler contractors, we have a submittal packet that is a turnkey, so that they could buy all of that from you through Viega, and we submit on it and gain the approvals easily.
Any questions on that? And then there's just labeling natural gas systems. And then there's your installation instructions. And supporting natural gas systems, there's the minimum hole dimensions. Again, this is all stuff that's in that little guide, so that when you email it out, that person has all this information and uses reference. So if you're doing a nominal size, then your half-inch, your whole size should be at least 1 inch.
One caution about ProPress G, the local authority that has jurisdiction sometimes will permit it for propane and not for natural gas. So it's an improved application for Viega, meaning you can bury it, but you might have to wrap it by local code if you're going to bury. So I would always check with your local authority having jurisdiction. Not true for MegaPress G. MegaPress G is something that is so widely approved that you don't have to show caution there. But on copper systems for natural gas, I would run it by your local authority first.
And it has that as a footnote in the book again. It tells you always refer to the local jurisdiction as the final word. Installing copper piping vertically, it's just, there you go, there's the warranty. And it is from the day it's installed, the fitting itself, not the press. Like if I had to press this to copper tubing, that copper tubing is not worn, just the fitting for 50 years against defects in materials or workmanship, and from the date of installation. That should be it, there we go. Any questions?
What is the biggest excuse that you've run across that customers use for not wanting to get into press material?
I have one in mind, but
Okay.
you do one too.
Yep.
That O-rings typically dry out in time, and they're going to crack, and they're going to leak.
And then we have
So-
this cutaway, I'll pass it around, that shows you how it's encapsulated in the
So
copper.
they're accustomed to using flange gaskets and O-rings, right? Exposed to the media, like a valve seat where you're grinding away at that seat every time you dynamically cycle in. We are a static seal external to the media, and when those jaws meet, you can't over press. You can press as many times as you want. It's not going to affect the integrity of that joint. So if we're pressing in this room, we're going to encapsulate forever what's ever in the air around that sealing element. The only thing that it's going to be subject to is line media. So as a sales group, if we've done our job appropriately, and it's water service, so we're going to go EPDM typically. We're not going to put EPDM on natural gas. So as long as we do our job appropriately, there's nothing that could possibly attack that sealing element. And why don't I say O-ring like NIPCO, like the knockoff brands? And not to knock them, but if you put a compression on their elastomer and then take that compression away, it doesn't return to its originally manufactured shape. So not only does the recipe and the cross-linking and the peroxide curing as opposed to sulfur curing, if you ever pick up a butterfly seed, that white chalk that you see is sulfur that it leached through the seed, because at the post-end curing process for all elastomers, they either flash it with peroxide, which is what we do, which is what Victolic does, it's what Yarway does. Higher end Fisher, as opposed to the old technology where they would flash it with the sulfur, and the sulfur would stay in the seed. The autoclave will pull out 98% of the peroxide that's used to cure the seed. So in addition to all those things going in, you just point out to the person that's concerned that when we press in this room, we're going to capture what's ever in the air around that sealing element. Now let's say if it's dry, hot air, like on a pneumatic convey line, well, that's not an approved application for Viega. We're not going to put press in on hot fly ash coming out of a precipitator or something like that. So if you look at what we show here, these are very benign applications that will actually lubricate that sealing element throughout the entire life cycle of the system. So static seal, not dynamic seal. The fact that the media actually serves as a lubricant. and there's really nothing that could attack that sealing element once it's put into service, if we've made our selections proper. Like for instance, if you go to the you can go to big box and get Apollo fittings. Compressed air is not an approved application for that. They don't have an answer for it. Glycol is not an approved application for that. If you notice, EPDM is a 60-40 glycol to a water solution. Very easy for us to, because of our design, for us to handle. I know it was like kind of a long-winded answer, but that would have been, the first thing that people say to me is, O-rings will eventually dry. Well, that O-ring is always in contact with the media. That's why we're very careful as to what we say is an approved application.
And you know, to that point too, many of the plumbers are associating the sealing element that we offer with the little O-ring that comes in the sink cartridges and things, and they wear out in 3 years. You know, it's like you're replacing a Ramon faucet thing. You know, but that's different, and that's why we have that conversation when that's asked. It's always good because we invite that question so that we can give you the facts and change it over and convert you over. But the question that I have heard a lot over the past going on 2 years now with the company was a lot of guys where they see it because they go in some place and they see it at work and they say, oh, there's that ProPress stuff. And oh, but that's expensive, you know. They don't know exactly how much, but they're looking at the cost, because if you buy solder and flux and consumables, you don't buy a 3-year supply all at once. You buy, you know, every so many months when you run low. So it's not a big cost to you in your mind. You're saying, I still use it and I'm always using it, but it doesn't seem much for me then. But when you look at this, you buy the tool right up front. It's going to be $2,800 for the 340 kit, okay? And the thing is, when you do that amortization where you say, man, I have 42,000 presses in that, and then I can rebuild it, and then it goes back to 42,000 more. So that tool may outlast the plumber or the technician that's using it because it's so sturdy and so reliable. But essentially we say, look, you're going to be able to pay for that tool in a matter of some jobs. Depending on the size of the job, you can put it in with the job and it's paid for automatically. Now you've got your tool for life. But some guys look at that and, you know, some people say, well, that's for big companies. No, I know guys that are, good example is a fellow out in Cambria County, Pennsylvania. Cambria County is a poor county. I don't know how many people here know that area, but there's nothing but old houses and barns and run down everything. Seriously, it's really bad. The newest thing there is a Sheetz gas station. So, and they use our product, by the way, it's spec'd in. But yeah, it's one of those things where he has one guy who helps him. He's like an apprentice, and he has 2 of these tools. He's got the 210 and he's got the 340. And so you would think that, hey, this guy saw the light because he does a lot of mega press work out there, because a lot of people have black iron pipe in their old houses for radiators, and he can go in there and get in there, cut that piece out, put a connect, you know, boom, he's in and out there in minutes versus ripping up the floorboards to get the piping out and all that and putting a new 20-foot section in or whatever. But yeah, that's one of the things we say, look, if you extrapolate this and basically do the comparisons, it's actually cheaper to use this over a 3-year period than it is solder and flux, because those prices are always going up, whereas this price, you just bought it today and now that price is done. It's like buying a car. The price doesn't go up next year unless you buy another car.
How about the complaint that, well, if I sweat this joint in and I accidentally have it, the 90 at a bad angle, well, I could always reheat up that joint, you know, doing that, perhaps clean up everything and re-solder. Well, it's because he doesn't know that MegaPress and ProPress was designed as a swing joint.
Yep.
So you pressed it, but you pressed it at the wrong angle. Put a wrench on the fitting and then turn it. You're going to have to lay into it. Once you relocate it, go ahead and repress it. So a lot of times guys will say, oh, wait, I can't move it. Well, now, you can't move a NIPCO fitting once it's pressed. I mean, and get it to hold atmosphere. But the way that the Germans have designed this technology, you can. It's designed as a swing joint. For us to get ICC PMG 1037, which is third-party testing, it basically says that everything that these national codes that Viega has submitted to these national codes, it confirms that, yeah, the fittings have performed just like the manufacturer has stated it. That's why these knockoff brands won't show ICC. because they haven't taken the money and the time to submit to gain ICC PMG third-party certification. So we can do that. We do certify that on an annual basis. ICC PMG 1037 applies to copper systems, and 1036 applies to black iron systems. And it's all back again to German engineering. How about this? When I hang it, it doesn't look straight when I'm done. Hit it with a rubber mallet. You're going to hang this product just like you would hang a traditional pipe joining system, right? So if you're doing exposed sprinkler and you don't do some of the things that Mike talks about, alternating your joints, horizontal line, and I've got a coupling here, and I want to press here. Come in with your scissor jaw, press. Come in from the other side, if you've got room, and press. And it'll torque the fitting straight. And what if I'm up against the wall? Well, that's okay. It's not going to, you can't come in from the other side. It doesn't affect the integrity if you're pressing all from the same side. You're always going to get the same reliable, consistent joint. But just tap it with a rubber mallet. These systems are very forgiving, and that'll straighten the fitting out, and then you can continue on.
Any other questions? Christine, was that enough of, you know, because I'm sure you still hear some people who, you know, oh, well, really, what is it? Really, what is it holding you back? Because this is a continual growth opportunity. There's the vertical market. Many people are coming onto it.
What would you say is, when we're out there in this geography competing, are we competing with solder mostly? Or are we competing with NIPCO, Zhongwu? Zhongwu is, that's Mueller. That's the latest game out there. They don't meet the Buy American clause of ARRA. They too will modify they call it O-ring. We would call it a sealing element. So what they do is they actually notch out pieces of rubber so that it identifies an unpressed connection before the installer goes home at night. And so our testing has shown, and guys in the field have indicated to us, sometimes if they don't press it, they join two pieces of copper and they put water to it, sometimes it drips and calls our attention to it, and sometimes it doesn't. Well, that scares me because it should be 100 times out of 100. But you're going to get, why should I spend 60 cents more to get your fitting? Mm-hmm. And I used to be an inside salesperson, so I kind of know what the questions are. And the other one is, I've got rigid jaws and I've got Milwaukee tools. Are they interchangeable? Yes. The jaws are fully interchangeable. Big thing for us right now is in the larger sizes. In copper XL, ProPress stainless XL, and MegaPress, and now MegaPress stainless XL. We have tools, boosters, and it's just it's crazy right now. Everybody's tools are loaned out, and we want to be patient with the industry because you want them to try it, right? But I guess it's that price point right now. It's competitive, but it's just not where it needs to be, and we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you look at like to Jim's question, is it more of this, or this? I actually would say in my own geography, from Johnstown to Berks County, from Greencastle up to Bloomsburg, it generally seems to be that people are a mixture of all. If you were to say, is there one more than another? No. Sometimes I'm competing with another, and we have to, you know, justify why our product is the better product, and we win that battle every time. When sometimes people are just all about price, and if it's the cheapest one, that's what I use. Probably not a good customer to deal with anyways. May want to just say goodbye to them, although I don't like saying goodbye to any customer. I love all customers. But you know, I was a distributor sales rep, as you know, and there were a few of those guys that people just, oh no, it's all about price. If that's all it is, then you don't need me either, because I'm not just price. So it's a mixture of everything in the relationship to why they're not using it. But believe me, there's people who remember the conversation I had with them 3 months ago. Now they're making the move. They said, you know what you told me made sense, and now I found a job that I want to use your product in, and I bought the tool, and then they're all proud. And believe me, once they get the tool, they're addicted, especially when it comes to the ProPress stuff too, because they're like, oh my God, I'm not lifting around that threader all over the place. You know, I don't have to take it up on the rooftop and play with that thing, because, you know, they're working on a big job on a tall 30-foot building or something like that.
We do need your help on the bronze valving side of things, you know. As I mentioned, this person that is now taking over is really sharp, Paige Riddle. She was in the United States out of Wichita, and then about 5 years ago, the Germans relocated her to Germany, and she just moved back, and she's really energized, and she's got the funding to make it right. But what we don't, where we need help, what we really don't understand, because, you know, we've been 30% out to Apollo forever, and if you compare our pricing to red and white, we're probably 40% out. So she's got this whole concept, but we really don't know the market like you think we would. Do you favor Apollo, or which valve do you favor?
Right now, we have red, white on the
white.
shelf.
Okay, great.
And we have some Milwaukee press.
Okay. And what was the other question? And with the red, white, okay, so that's what you go to battle with primarily. So let me put the Apollo aside. What, can I ask you what model number? I won't ask you for pricing.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Is,
Is it
I wanna say
55, 55, 44?
It could be. I wouldn't say 5182, but I don't know if that's
I don't
correct
know.
either.
We'll look and let you know.
well, that's great, and that's half through 4 inch, right?
Yeah.
And it has the stainless ball, and it has the,
I think it has the stainless ball.
The ones
Might
we
not.
stock don't have the stainless
No.
ball.
okay.
Yeah, we stock just the regular brass chrome plated.
With the encapsulated body seals, and then the live loaded stem packing, and
Yeah, I think
okay.
so.
Yeah, well, you know what? If I could get the model number, I'll do my own research.
Mhm.
But that because I say to Paige, you know,
The
we
best
could-
thing to do is get with Bob on that, though. He would be
Yeah,
the
he'll be up at
one.
the next
Okay.
meeting. He'll know exactly
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
ones.
He'll
Yeah,
know,
he's good.
Yeah.
because
Okay.
he's our purchasing agent, so he would be the one that. The question I do have for you though is if I am quoting a big job, and I do need that little extra help,
Yeah, we're looking for those.
what price margin are you looking at?
Threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah, so typically it's said that if you are, let's say, I'll give you a couple scenarios, and I know Jim is definitely nodding himself on this one. If you have a job where there's like 20,000 or 22,500 worth of ProPress, we have a threshold of about 25. That's where we want to begin to talk to lower a multiplier for you and
Okay.
take it to a 3.8. Typically, we would ask, hey, yeah, reach for that one, assume it's 25, and then just take that extra $2,500 worth of product and put it in your stock, then you have lower price stock, and, you know, that way you get to that point.
Right.
So at least figure on, you know, 25 is this threshold. You know, we've quoted jobs higher than that, and then you get up to 70 or 80,000, then we can get down to 3.7 and, you know, that kind of thing. So the more, the better, let's put it
Because
that
I
way.
have one particular customer that likes to really beat me up on pricing.
Well, here's what we got to do. Then we backfill a story that says that there are other, like NIPCO. If NIPCO was submitted, he would be approved. So that's our first benchmark that we have to show that it's not all Viega people.
Right.
Because what we don't want to see happen is that you guys will then adjust your margins, and because we didn't realize that we're all just competing with ourselves here. So, but to your point, we have to backfill a story that's plausible. That's set, and it will what we say in this room stays in this room, right? So we show that there's a reason that's defendable that we need a job quote for, and then on the heels of that, to Mike's point is, let's say that you've got a project where it is 25,000. If we just provided you with 25,000 and he came the following week to your counter to pick up, he doesn't like being told you're that price, you lost that price.
Well, and we have a certain thing that we put on our quotes that would let them know that it's just for that quote
Okay.
only and not for just, you know,
Well, that's cool that you can
normal
do that.
item.
I just don't want my phone to ring
Right.
because I can't say no to you. And then the gyrations that we have to go through to get that,
Right.
let's take advantage of it. Again, we're not allowed to discount for stock. That's not the Germans' way of doing things.
Right.
They don't mind discounting for large projects. And when we say discounting, it's a 3.8. To get a 3.7,
It's got to
now,
go way up there.
I mean, it would take
Okay.
us 3 weeks to get it approved, so the opportunity's gone. And so, but a 3.8 we can do as long as it's large enough and as long as we know that we
Okay.
can show.
Well, if
that
I
it's-
get anything, I'll be sure to.
Yeah.
Please.
And we give you, to add to your background, is that if you do get a job quote number, it's not expired within a day. We give a certain amount of time typically, now if you get a job quote on December 25th, that might be,
Right.
a strange thing there, but we have to, obviously make sure that there's
Okay.
a certain
just
amount of time
keep it-
expiration.
I think that's how you kind of started out, was not all customers give a shit whether it's
Yeah.
good material that's not gonna leak. And
Right.
we're not
Right.
gonna whore up the market on a good quality product
Yep.
just to
Yep.
So we will,
satisfy his whatever. You get
and
a
that's
trip.
it's only the tier 1, okay, your tier 1 distributors that we do that with. We don't do ride-alongs unless it's a tier 1. We don't
Yep.
consider any buying group rebates unless it's tier 1. So let's switch back to the things that I find now that I've been here for a little while is, if I was a guy that was considering a switch, it's not just that he doesn't have to get a burn permit in advance, doesn't have to do a fire watch, he can press without draining the system all the way. For me, it's strength of connection. I'm amazed. We just got a big OEM account because they have a non-union shop, fabricating their shop. Load all that sweat copper up onto a flatbed. They install cooling towers all over the country. So he's shipping it halfway across the country. And he knows that there's a percentage of those joints that are going to open up because of the vibration. He has to send a service tech out, because he's got to have a guy that can clean those joints up. Now that he's gone press, nothing's opening up in transit. So to me, I think it's the strength of connection. And the contractors will say, if I'm estimating, your PHCC dinner, he's doing a big dinner, and some of the contractors that are already pressing came up to him before, we don't want the rest of the guys to know about this. Because they can estimate to the dollar press, but they don't know how long it's going to take a guy to sweat a 3-inch joint, right? So they love to know where their labor is and how they can estimate. But again, I think that's like a minor advantage.
Right.
I guess the second big one would be nobody has to breathe in the flux that's in the air now. When you're soldering the hazards, like in school environments, once a week the contractor has to provide air quality tests to the GC because they've got a barrier set up, but still they don't want the students breathing in that stuff. So there's a lot of advantages,
Yeah,
but for me,
way more than not.
because when we press, you saw what we are deforming the copper tubing and the copper fitting together. So we're actually, creating the likelihood that we're getting any vertical separation is almost zero.